About 14,500 years ago, there was a major advance of the Wisconsin ice sheet. It breached several glacial moraines and caused meltwater to discharge into the Kankakee River Valley. But the Kankakee Valley couldn't accommodate all the flowing water, and so it spread out over the surrounding uplands and formed a series of large glacial lakes. During this time, glacial sands got deposited into these lakes. When these lakes eventually drained, an extensive amount of that sand was left behind. These sand deposits account for about 5% of the land area in Illinois, and plant and animal communities in these types of habitats are extremely diverse. One of these areas is located between the town of Braidwood and the Kankakee River, where there are several preserves. Among them, the Kankakee Sands Preserve features 2.5 miles of crushed limestone trail. So I'm going to bike this trail and stop to check out some of the plants that jump out at me here in early May. Zizia aurea is a native carrot that is highly recommended for flower gardens. Its yellow flowers are beneficial to many types of insects seeking nectar and pollen. Each of its compound umbels will have about 12 umbellets. This plant is very similar to wild parsnip, which is a plant that you need to be careful around because it causes phytophotodermatitis. Wild parsnip differs by having 15 to 25 umbellets. The leaves can also help distinguish between different carrot plants. Zizia aurea's compound leaves will have 3 or 5 leaflets, whereas wild parsnip usually has 9. Blue-eyed grass is the common name for this plant. While the foliage is certainly grass-like, this is a bad nickname because this plant is in the iris family, not the grass family. Iris flower parts occur in multiples of 3. Here we have 3 petals and 3 sepals, which look nearly identical to each other. There are several Cicerentium species that occur in the area. To tell them apart, you'll want to pay attention to the flower color, the number of spathes, and their habitat. This one prefers sun and is not found in woody areas. When I did enter a woody area, the most abundant plant and flower was anise root. This plant is similar to others in the carrot family, but it can be identified by the black licorice smell of its crushed foliage and the number of flowers it has per umbellet. It'll typically have between 7 and 16 of them. I expect to see black oak trees in a sandy habitat like this. Black oak can be difficult to tell apart from other oaks with bristle-tip leaves. The best way I found is to look closely at the acorn caps. Black oak has relatively small acorns, and the caps have scales that fray apart towards the ends. Another type of plant that is common in open sandy areas is Lithospermum. Its trumpet-shaped corollas have narrow openings that are ideal for butterflies to pollinate by using their long proboscis. There are 2 species in Illinois that look like this. One way to tell them apart is by the texture of the hairs on the foliage. Lithospermum caroliniense tends to be a larger plant with a rougher feel, whereas the foliage of Lithospermum canescens will have a more velvety texture. These blooms of blue-violet flowers belong to the sundial lupin. Lupinus is a large genus with a challenging taxonomy. Estimates on the number of species worldwide generally fall between 200 and 500. Thankfully, for the purposes of identification, this is the only one that occurs in Illinois. The common name sundial comes from its tendency to orient its foliage towards the sun. This shield-shaped insect is commonly known as a stink bug. This name refers to its ability to release a pungent defensive spray when threatened or crushed. These large colonies of Pedicularis canadensis are like a work of art. Their flowers emerge in an unusual spiraling pattern, and their foliage has a fern-like appearance. Most cacti can't handle the long, cold winters in Illinois, but this one does. Prickly pears have long spines that you obviously want to avoid, but what you really need to watch out for are the fine bristles near the areoles called glochids. These devilish barbed hairs are extremely irritating. And if you can't remove them with tweezers, you'll pretty much have to wait until your body reacts with dermatitis and blisters to eventually expel them. My best advice is to enjoy opuntias from a distance.